Welcome, everyone, to the Power Connection broadcast. My name is Bobby Umar. I'm here with Jelena, who's going to talk to us about career transition and building a bit better mindset for that. And she's got some incredible insights for you all. So, good morning or good afternoon, Jelena. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Good to see you, Bobby, and thank you so much for inviting me. And good morning to you. Indeed, we're already early afternoon here.
That's right. So she's in the UK and I'm over here in Canada. But thanks so much for joining us. So the Power of Connection broadcast, we usually go on every Monday and Wednesday around 8:45 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. We cover all the different topics around professional lives. I like to focus on things like personal branding, storytelling, entrepreneurship, thought leadership, digital marketing, social media, and things like that, building relationships. And then I bring in other guests who bring other sorts of expertise. We had someone talking about universal basic income. Now, Jelena has expertise in career transition, and for the most part, we also want you to engage us. So, we encourage all of you who are listening to this to ask questions below, type your comments, and let's start with the basics, which is, tell us where you're from. Are you from North America, South America, Europe, Africa, Asia, or Australia? And then once you get into the conversation, you can start asking your questions because the topic is about career transition. And particularly, a lot of people are looking at career transition during COVID, which I think is something that, is a challenge for a lot of people. If you are liking what you're hearing, by all means, comment some more, say great work. I love to hear we're doing well, and I'm sure Jelena likes to hear that she's doing well. So let us know. You can also like, clap, support, heart, light bulb, and smiley face as you're going along. And you can also, tag people during the conversation or share this on your own pages. All right. So welcome to the broadcast. Comment below. Tell us where you're from. Ask questions. So let's start with the first thing, which is, tell us about your story.
Right, my story.
Yeah, a bit about you.
I set up my career coaching consultancy about 4.5 years ago. It's called What Work Career Coaching. I deliberately use the word work as opposed to career because I work with people who are in any sort of transition. So they may be changing jobs in the corporate sector, but they also may be looking to set up on their own. So I cover the initial stages of entrepreneurship. As for my story, my background is in international recruitment, over 25 years of that. My corporate career started in Japan a long time ago. And what took me there was actually my love for languages and foreign cultures. So I did English and Japanese at university, and I landed my first job in Tokyo. And that was in the recruitment, more specifically international recruitment arena. And I really found meaning in that work because I always saw recruitment as connecting two sides for a win-win. In other words, supplying best talent to corporates who could then facilitate the further development of that talent. So after 4 years in Tokyo, I moved to London, and I've been here since, which is 25 years, a long time. And I continued my work in recruitment, and in my last employment, recruitment for higher education, where I worked with top business schools, helping them source and select executive MBA and MBA students. So that gave me an overview of how people actually develop their careers through education as well, and how well they utilize education in their careers. And I've seen a lot of different scenarios, and education, of course, is important and is one of my passions, but that is not the only deciding factor for success and fulfillment in careers, far away from it. So it made me curious to research and investigate why some people are more successful and more fulfilled, even if they had the same sort of starting point as someone else who, on the other hand, is not as successful or as fulfilled. And that brought me to to start looking more at the psychological side of everything. I have always been very much invested in personal development, spiritual practice, meditation, and all sorts of, I would say, various approaches to knowledge and insight. So I started looking into what it is that makes some people fulfilled and successful in their careers, whereas others are not. And that led me to eventually qualify as a coach and start my career coaching business.
And I love that you mentioned fulfillment, because that's a word I use a lot. It's a very, very important word to me. Often people talk about, how do what success, or they say happiness. And I always say, no, fulfillment. That's what you want. Happiness is great, and I love happiness, but happiness all the time actually wouldn't be a good thing. We would just become complacent, and we wouldn't want to change, and we wouldn't innovate, we wouldn't create, and we wouldn't feel the full range of the human emotions. And then success is something that is a different meaning for everybody. And a lot of people put success in terms of money or status or title and things like that, and they realize that despite the money, despite the status, despite the title, they're actually unhappy, or as I call it, unfulfilled. So I love to use fulfilled, because that's the word I use all the time. To me, the goal for when I work with personal branding clients and to help people get more aligned, the goal is fulfillment. When you are focused, when you're aligned, and you're having the impact that you want, you're going to find more fulfillment. And so
exactly.
Yeah. So I'm glad you said that. Really resonates with me. Now, again, we're just joining it. Oh, go ahead, please. Go ahead.
Just very briefly, I base my coaching on that, really, because I help my clients uncover what truly matters to them, which is around values and passions and what drives them, so that they start getting clarity on their authentic self, rather than being driven by ideas of success or expectations that came from someone else, be it parents or peers or bosses or whoever.
Yeah, no, that's great. And I think that for me, everything I do when it comes to helping people with speaking or storytelling or relationship building, I always go back to personal branding. What is your brand in terms of your values and your interests, skills, passions, and then how does that align with where you want to go? Because when you do that, then the other stuff becomes much easier and it's more focused, right? So the topic today is building a winning mindset for a career transition. And I think it's even more important during a time of COVID. So why don't you tell us a bit more? And again, if you're just joining us here, we're talking to Jelena, and we're talking about career transition. So if you have questions, comment below. If you let us know where you're from, where you're calling from, we want to hear where you're from. So comment. We see Brianna has commented, great work, and Martin says hello, Bobby and Jelena. That's great. We want more people to comment and share their questions. So one of the things about mindset I think is important, is particularly during the time of COVID. So, how has COVID been for you personally? I mean, how have you kind of dealt with the last 6 months?
For me personally, I think my story probably is not a typical one, because my business hasn't been adversely affected. To a certain extent, yes, because people were perhaps finding it more difficult to commit financially in certain cases to coaching. But on the other hand, I feel that the demand for coaching, particularly career coaching, which is infused with sort of higher level life coaching, the demand has exploded, because a lot of people feel the uncertainty, the pressure. A lot of them have experienced the change that they didn't want or didn't plan to, and therefore a lot of ground has disappeared, and sort of anchors or pillars in our life that we used to take for granted almost. So in that sense, I'd say that I've connected to many more people. I've seen a lot more interest and proactivity from clients or potential clients, or even just generally people who want to engage, who want to find out more, what can help them, where to look, what to look for. So in that respect, I'd say, and I'm very grateful for that, I haven't experienced anything particularly negative. Of course, apart from the overall sense of, shall I say, dread, because we all experienced that, particularly at the beginning of the pandemic, because it was very, very scary and completely unknown. But I think over time, people have started to get more insight and possibly also to choose where they get their information from. This is also one very important part of what I teach, let's say, about mindset. I had an article published earlier this year about mental hygiene. I had actually written that article before the pandemic, not knowing that the pandemic was coming.
Right.
But in that article, I talk about be very mindful what you consume, much like we consume food or water or whatever, drinks, we also consume information.
Yep.
If we constantly consume only negative, sensationalized, overpowering information, it's going to affect us very much emotionally, mentally, physically. So while I'm all for being informed, I would just like everyone to build a bit of awareness around, okay, I choose to plug into this, or I will step back and maybe sort of build my own view of the situation, rather than allowing just to be bombarded by a lot of actually stressful stimuli.
So I like the topic of mental hygiene. So let's talk briefly about that. And I know we have a question already from somebody, but I want to get to the actual the mental hygiene thing. So how do we then take the mental hygiene, apply to career transition? So here people are trying to transition their career. How do we apply the mental hygiene in that kind of situation?
Sure.
And maybe talk about, the people who are trying to create a career transition, how they're feeling and what they're kind of going through.
Yes, absolutely. As I said, I wrote the article even before the pandemic, but I think the pandemic situation just emphasized the need for self-care and taking care of our mental and emotional well-being. So in terms of any personal change or a career change, I think first and foremost, it will be about individuals building resilience and adaptability, agility, shall I say, in response to change. Also, I think there are two kinds of change. One is the one that we create and welcome, and that is based on conscious action that we take, say, to change our career. And the other type of change is what happens to us. So during big shake-ups like the pandemic, a lot of people en masse experience this other change, which is just happened to me. So it is about, and I read about it, I just read a quote this morning somewhere, I think on LinkedIn, nothing is forever. And that is absolutely true. So it's about reminding ourselves that this shall pass too, that it's not really the end of the world, or not yet, and that it's a time for reflection and kind of gathering, regrouping our resources, and then finding the best way to utilize these resources. When I say that in terms of career, I mean, first of all, reflection, which is around building self-awareness around your skills, strengths, competencies, identifying those transferable skills, and then in a mindful approach, deciding what are the next steps to do with that. Where can I go with this? Am I going to change industry? Am I just going to change the role? Do I want to work in a different kind of company, and so forth? But the magnitude of change is phenomenal. I just got some stats which says, according to Total Jobs, that about 70% of people they surveyed in the UK are cited as being prepared to work in a different sector. And about 50% of surveyed people, their estimate is not just surveyed people actually of the UK workforce, is saying that they will change either jobs or industries in the next 2 years. So 50% of the entire workforce is massive. It's absolutely massive.
Yeah, and 70% are willing to change sectors, and wow, that's a lot. I mean, they're basically saying, well, I don't want to do this or anything related to this anymore, and something completely different. I think that relates probably to the statistics around people who are disillusioned and dispassionate about their jobs. They're not aligned, and so that stat is around 70%
Yeah.
too. So I think that totally makes sense. I want to get into the question that someone brought up, and then we'll get into some other stuff. So Josue says, "Hi Bob and Jelena, great session. Question: I know you value fulfillment. However, is there still a connection between fulfillment and economics? Can you be fulfilled while struggling economically, not finding a job, being overlooked due to age, race, or overqualification?" What are your thoughts on that? That's a good question.
Sure. I think fulfillment is something that doesn't happen overnight, and it is something that we strive towards. And I totally get it that you may be facing a lot of different challenges, and a lot of people do face challenges currently. But I would say, going back to the mindset and this mental hygiene, it is about cultivating trust and, shall I say, faith that things will work out. Because after all, we really create what we believe. That's what we believe, that's what we project, and that's what we create around us. So I'm not advocating that you just think something and it happens. Maybe some people can do that. But what I'm putting the emphasis on is that consciously cultivating a positive mindset, which is hopeful and which is also proactive, looking for a solution and keeping faith that solution will be found eventually, can certainly help. At the opposite end of that is, if we really allow ourselves to be completely overwhelmed or get completely despondent and dejected and depressed, and people do, I mean, it's normal, it's part of life as well, then that makes it a lot harder to actually take proactive steps. So in that sense, fulfillment and economics, again, it very much depends on what your values are. I'm not saying, of course, being without the job and not earning anything is good. But for some people, the monetary component of their work is the main driver. For some people, it is not. It is secondary. There are people for whom monetary reward is way down at the bottom. And all of that transpires through the coaching process. So I would just say, reflect, see what really matters to you, keep up the positive attitude, find your own way to do that, because we're all different. Some people run, meditate, do yoga, sing, whatever works for you, or a combination of all of these activities, so that you keep your body-mind system in balance, and from there start to proactively create action steps that can get you to a place you want to.
You know, and I'll add that's great insight. Thank you. I'll add my own 2 cents here. You know, when you look at someone who's struggling economically, or someone who is not finding a job, or feeling like they're being overlooked, how can those people find fulfillment and find the joy? And usually it's usually based on things like they're finding gratitude in other things around them. It could be nature, it could be their family, it could be their friends, it could be their health, it could be the fact that they're doing hot yoga or they're doing rock climbing. So there are ways to do that. The way I define it is, you know, fulfillment comes from from 4 areas of our life: the people in our life, the work in our life, the passion pursuits in our life, and then the spiritual meditation, religious stuff in our life. And even if some of them are low, right, I find that as long as you know which ones are doing pretty well, like let's say maybe you don't have the financial one, okay, and the work one's not doing so well, but the people one's pretty high. You know, you love your kids, you love your friends, you love your parents. You're really feeling fulfilled there, and maybe really fulfilled with your passion pursuit of stem collecting or rock climbing or hot yoga. And as long as you are consciously trying to make all 4 of those buckets better, you still get a sense of fulfillment, because it's gratitude for the ones that are doing better than the other ones, and for the ones that aren't doing so well, at least you are putting the effort in, and with the right mindset to improve those things. And I find that even if you're at that level, it can work for you. And what's even better is that when you have that mindset and you have that confidence and you have that feeling of fulfillment, it actually will end up working better for you when you go to interviews when you write stuff because your confidence and your self-esteem will start to shine through.
Absolutely, I agree with that. I'd add just one practical point in terms of that this is one of the key things that I do with my clients during career coaching process, which is I help them create and write career narratives. So this is part of this sort of introspection of looking at your past achievements, milestones. When did you shine? So the purpose of this is manifold. The first one is to remind yourself of how great you are and what you achieved in the past, you can do again. So that in itself instills confidence, and people forget, we all forget. And when I get my clients to do it, they're like, oh my God, yeah, I really did this. And I totally forgot about it. And it was super difficult. So it's this kind of reflection and creating these stories, which then you can use in interviews, applications, and so forth. And of course, it will help you, the preparation will help you articulate them better in those situations.
Great. And Jojo says, excellent feedback on my question, much appreciated. And Steven says, hey, Bobby. So if you're just joining us, we're talking to Jelena about career transition and building a mindset while doing career transition. And if you have questions, comment below. Tell us where you're from. We want to hear from you. Let's get into the mindset piece. So when it comes to career transition, what are some of the things that people are struggling with when it comes to their mindset?
Sure. As mentioned before, I think adaptability and tolerating uncertainty are very important. And I find that a lot of people struggle with that. I mean, I would struggle. It's not easy. Some people obviously have more resilience in that area. But again, the fact that you're proactively working on it means that you're already starting to see sort of the light at the end of the tunnel, as opposed to just sitting and lamenting and doing nothing. So it is basically overcoming the uncertainty by taking conscious, proactive steps to create your next role or your next transition, to create your future reality. Okay. One other thing that I also want to point out, in addition to this sort of self-knowledge and self-belief that we keep coming to, I would say, and the adaptability, I would say it's also about potentially upskilling and reskilling. Mm-hmm. That's something I've been researching recently, and as we all know, digital skills are so very much in demand for a lot of sectors and industries. I also read some staggering statistics that around 44% of Europeans between the age of 17 and 64 don't even have basic digital skills, which is mind-blowing. I guess everyone knows how to surf the internet.
Sorry, did you say 40%?
Yes, over 40%.
Wow.
That's something I got. I wrote an article recently, which is going to be published. This came from the World Economic Forum.
Okay.
So when we talk about reskilling and upskilling, I would say by all means, identify what you lack in terms of digital skills. It doesn't mean you need to all of a sudden become a coder or a programmer or a software engineer, but what is it in your type of work, in your field, or perhaps the field that you're planning to transition into, what is it that you could learn? And again, people often delay that, or they're not sure, but really there's no excuse. First of all, there's a lot of free resources today with YouTube, with online courses, with webinars, with LinkedIn, and so forth. You can find tons of things which are either free or inexpensive. And then once you've done that research and sampled different things, you can then decide, okay, I'm going to invest in this course. So there are creative ways of using this gap. Say if you're out of work, it doesn't necessarily have to cost you an arm and leg, but maybe a bit of an investment. But that's an investment that will pay off. Not just it will pay off in the future, but also immediately. If you go to an employer and say, I'm enrolled in this course and I expect to finish by then, or I have just finished, that automatically improves your chances of getting that role.
Now, you mentioned, it's important to take certain steps as you're moving along the career transitions. Let's talk about that. What are some of the key steps that people need to take when they're considering doing a career transition?
Right. I'd say I think the easiest way is to perhaps just portray briefly what I do, because I have my methodology. And the first phase is self-discovery.
Okay.
Because and self-knowledge. So as we mentioned before, uncovering your top skills, strengths, but also natural talents. What is it that you're naturally drawn to that comes to you very easily? But also identifying your weaknesses or perceived weaknesses or limiting beliefs, very important. So this is this first stage of self-discovery or self-knowledge. My thinking is always that you cannot be confident if you don't know what you're confident of. So the more awareness that you build about your strong points, but also those that need more development, with that clarity, the more inspired and more confident you will be. And then the next phase normally is about looking at different options in terms of, what next. So I often see clients who they've got their, say, package, they know what they've got in terms of qualification and experience, and then they're thinking, okay, where can I go with that? Which is great, but it's not enough. You also need to look at what it is that you want. Even if you're unemployed, it's still very important that you know what important parameters are for your employment. Is the monetary reward top of the game? Is it you want to work in a new exciting industry? Is it innovation? Is it career progression? Some people come to me and say, oh, I don't want to travel ever again because I traveled all my life as a consultant. Some people say, I really want to do something more international and travel.
For me, it was always, I wanted to, because I always had really bad managers. And I was like, I really want a good manager who was a mentor and a champion for me, like someone who would be actually my friend. I never had a manager who was my friend. And I was like, that's what I really want.
That is very important. And I also get that from some clients as a matter of priority. And I see with those people is that the immediate environment is actually most important to them. What is my boss like? What are my colleagues like? What's the company culture? Do my values fit with the values of the team and the company? And then I help them suss out kind of research to get as close to the truth as possible, whether those values are really, true, that there's a true overlap, or perhaps, company or a corporate is saying something that they're not really following through. So in that sense, qualifying different options from both what you bring to the company and also what you require. And the final, I mean, there's a lot more work there, but just to simplify, the whole bit is about implementing. So now that you know what you can bring and what you want, and generally we form a career strategy in terms of where you look for these opportunities, then we move into implementation. Now, where you look for opportunities leads me to my next point, which is networking. I cannot emphasize enough. Networking is super important, even at the times of when we didn't have pandemic, but now in particular. So a lot of opportunities are not out there in the open. They're in the so-called hidden job market. And that's where the strength of your network is going to help you, or perhaps unhelp you, if you haven't invested in building meaningful connections, keeping in touch with past co-workers and bosses, business associates, clients, and constantly building new connections. And in the final bit, I would say, of implementation, that's where, much like you do, Bobby, with your clients, that's where we would work on personal branding, LinkedIn, would touch upon the resume or CV. In case of interviewing, obviously help with interview prep and so forth.
Yeah, you talk a lot about the things that I'm really passionate about too. So I mean, I frame it like thought leadership. So if you want to become a thought leader in your field, which will help with your career growth and recognition, you have to build relationships, you have to create ideas and content, and you have to actually work on your speaking communication skills. And if
Yeah.
you do that, you're going to become a much better thought leader in your field. And so networking is certainly a huge part of it. We have a question actually from Assad. And again, we're here with Jelena talking about career transition, building a better mindset. And if you have questions, comment below, let us know where you're from, but give us questions. So this one's really interesting. Assad says, doesn't fulfillment come from doing things for others versus yourself? If you do things for only yourself, that to me is success.
That's an interesting way of looking at it.
Yeah.
I wouldn't necessarily polarize it. I would bring it together.
Right.
Bobby, you are surely, and me too, and many other people, we're service oriented. In other words, we derive our fulfillment as well as all other aspects of our benefits of our work from serving others, working with people, helping them achieve something. So I see fulfillment very much in, yes, it is linked to, in case of our industry of coaching and training, let's say, it is very much derived from helping others and serving others. But by extension, this is also what serves us, because it gives us personal fulfillment, professional fulfillment, learning. I mean, I learn from my clients as much as they learn from me. Monetary reward. So I wouldn't necessarily split these two. But then again, definition of success is very personal to each person. So.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I think that fulfillment, can come from even just a sense of purpose, which is more of a personal thing as opposed to the service of other people. So fulfillment can come in many sorts of ways. And then the idea of doing things for only yourself, that's the only way to define success. Yeah, you're right. That's a bit polarizing. I mean, doing things for others can be success or can feel successful. I mean, a person that we think is successful has maybe done amazing things for 1 million people. And we don't know how much money they make. We don't know how they feel, but we see that what they've done, the impact they've had on those people as success. And so, but you're right. I mean, you make a good point. That's different for each person as they go about it. So, no, I appreciate that. It's a really interesting idea about fulfillment. Do you have your own? Do you have a definition for fulfillment? I mean, how do you define that?
Gosh, that's an interesting question. I never thought about defining it specifically. I would say, let's say in terms of career, I'd say that career fulfillment is where you do work that is meaningful to you and aligned with your values, that you thrive in and you're happy to do, and you can see the results, and also type of work or career that meets your top values. Again, whether that's work-life balance, impacting others, making an X amount of money, whatever it is. So that to me would be career fulfillment.
Yeah, no, I like that. I mean, I also don't have a definition of fulfillment. I think of it, I was thinking about it in terms of purpose. Fulfillment, it comes from a sense of purpose around what you're doing. And if it's very purposeful and, as you said, meaningful, aligns with your values, then what happens is that even when the good and bad are happening at the same time, it's still fulfilling. So my two best examples I use fulfillment is parenting and entrepreneurship. So parenting, for example, when my daughter was a year and a half old and she was crying in the middle of the night, 3 o'clock in the morning, and I'm holding her, trying to, okay, shush, go to sleep. I'm singing lullabies. And then she won't go to bed. And I'm up there for 45 minutes and my back's hurting. It's 3 in the morning. I'm tired. And you would say, oh, you must be miserable. No, I'm fulfilled. Because while I love the snuggles and the smiles and the giggles, this part, even though it's hard and somewhat painful, it's fulfilling because it's part of my purpose. I know what I'm doing as a parent. Same with entrepreneurship, right? Entrepreneurship is great because I have autonomy, I have freedom, I have this, unlimited income potential. But then there's the uncertainty and the tough days and the stress and that type of thing. But I wouldn't change it. I mean, it's part of the journey, and so for me, that's why fulfillment's so important. So that's kind of how I look at it. Those are the two best examples I can come up with.
Absolutely, and I agree, and they're wonderful examples. And I think I also, in my work with my clients, when we use the Ikigai coaching model, we look at
Yes.
purpose, and I help them create a statement that could be, if they're so inclined and inspired, could be their Ikigai statement. So my own is that I lead with love and insight to help increase awareness, because I see coaching as a tool to help everyone, including myself, become more aware, expand our awareness, and that to me is a route to fulfillment.
I like that. And now I'm curious about another question around career transition. So when you're working with people on career transition, because because again, a lot of stuff you talk about ikigai, these are all the things I do too. So I just do it in a different way. Um,
Yeah.
when I work with people on transition, one of the things I start to explore is whether they want to go to a new career or a new industry, either the same, obviously the same company or the same kind of industry or a new industry, or maybe they want to go and leave and become an entrepreneur. So
Yeah.
what do you do to try to identify that? Do I want to stay in corporate or do I want to actually maybe be an entrepreneur?
Sure, it's a great question, and
Thanks.
the answer is always different, often different from what we expect, and that's the beauty of coaching. So I think I mentioned in a post the other day that some clients come to me. I had a client who came to me saying, I really want to work on promotion. I want to get a promotion at this company. So she wanted help with confidence and how to present herself and all of that. But as we were digging deeper and discovering the circumstances in her current team and so forth, eventually we came to the conclusion that she'll be much better off going somewhere else. And the moment she opened to that thought, fantastic offers started pouring. So she accepted it. She's one of the 10 people who got a role during the lockdown. And she started her new job at a major company. Very happy. So that was unexpected from what we started with.
Mm-hmm.
Equally, I had clients who said, "Oh, I really want to change." It could be because their current role was not giving them enough remit, and then that particular client boss left. All of a sudden, she had a lot more responsibility, even though she was really in an early career, so she couldn't jump to that level straight away. But immediately, the content of her job became a lot more interesting. While at the same time, she was saying, "I really love this company." That's what she was saying from the beginning. But just the job is really boring. I want to grow faster. I want to. So with the change of circumstance, it turned out that even though she came to me with an idea, yes, I definitely want to change. I want to go to a different company and learn something new. Actually, she stayed. We worked on her confidence, boundaries, and whatever else she needed to do work on, and she received a double promotion after 6-7 months, and it was phenomenal. And then we were able to make plans for different things she wanted to do, like an MBA. So you never know until you start exploring, really, from many different angles. Things can turn out to be different. Of course, I do get clients who come to me and say, "Okay, I've had enough, I'm leaving," or "I've been made redundant after 25 years or whatever, and I want to set up on my own. What do I do?" And that's where I help them, for example, if the transition is into entrepreneurship.
Yeah, I think that when people want to do entrepreneurship, I have a bit of a bias being an entrepreneur. So I sometimes will say I think most people should think about entrepreneurship or some sort of form of it, even if it's a side hustle. But that's kind of my bias because I'm not a I'm I have a lot of bias against the corporate life, particularly for a lifetime. Like my personal belief is that at some point in your 5, 10, 15-year career, you need to find an exit strategy to leave and create that life that you want to really live for yourself. Because and no person when they're 75 thinks, "Oh, I'm so glad I spent 50 years at company X helping them make $100 billion. That's great." Really, that's my legacy. That no one thinks that way. So I'm always like, what can, because everyone has an opportunity to transition. So that's kind of my bias. So I often bring it up. But But here's another question in terms of transition. How do you know in a company that it's time to leave? How do you know, like, you know what, I need to get out of here. I need to transition. Because when I was in corporate, one of my colleagues came up to me and he said, Bobby, you know what? Can I tell you something really honest? I said, sure. He's like, you need to get out of here. I said, what? What do you mean? Like, he's like, look, you've been at the same desk for 2.5 years. Most people are this type of, they usually move on to a different desk in the organization in brand marketing. You're still there. They're clearly not moving you and not changing you, and they're squeezing you out. So you need to get out of here. And I was like, whoa. And it took me by surprise. He's a friend of mine, but I was like, wow. And I wasn't seeing this. And he's like, no, like really, I think you, like, if you ask them for a promotion or a side somewhere else, see what they say, because I bet you they're going to say no, or they're going to come up with some sort of excuse. And that to me is that's a squeeze, which means that you need to leave it. So I did this. I hadn't been hot for about 3 months. I did it. I went to them and I was told no for various reasons that I didn't really make sense to me. And then at that point, I was constantly looking to exit.
And then you did, I'm sure.
And then I did. Yes, I did on my own terms, which was great.
Sure. Thank you for the great example. I think it's very interesting, because I was going to say exactly that. I would listen to inner or internal signals as well as external. I personally, I use a lot of intuition in my coaching as well, and that is really being in tune with yourself, with, you know, how you feel. Are you energized? Are you happy to go to work? Do you enjoy what you're doing? Or is it getting to be so tiresome and, you know, you feel stuck and there's like everything feels heavy? You know, does the work still resonate with you? All of these and many more internal signals is something that I would pay attention to. And generally, you know, are you happy? Or even if you are not happy right now, is this current workplace a place that can give you the growth that you want, say, in the next 2 years, 3 years, 5 years? And then, of course, external signals. Are you being valued? Are you being appreciated? You know, who is supporting you in this company? Do you have an advocate or a champion? Obviously, Bobby, that friend of yours, an ex-colleague of yours, he was your advocate. He was your champion, because he helped you, which is brilliant. Because sometimes, and that's something I see a lot with my clients, they get so busy with work and they start working with me, but the work is so overwhelming in their corporate job that they struggle to devote enough time and attention to the career transition. So I would say also set some time aside just for yourself, reflect, research, get feedback. I use that as well, 360 feedback, but not in the corporate sense, but, you know, from friends, family, business associates, ex-bosses, and get a little bit of an external input, and the combination of your kind of internal insights and this external will give you a clear guidance, I believe.
Agreed. Thank you, Jelena. We're talking to Jelena about career transition, building a better mindset, and she's giving some really great insights on how she coaches people through career transition. Another question from Josue, which is, in your experience and in the context of COVID-19, with so many people competing for the shrinking job pool, will job transitioning be for most people a downgrade to a less economically sustainable job? Is COVID-19 correcting the job landscape, shifting the power to the employers?
Wow,
these are deep questions.
Thought-provoking question, absolutely. I would say on the surface, possibly that's what it looks like. I don't profess to have a magic sort of glass ball, so crystal ball, so I cannot say, or I don't have the data which would support a sweeping statement. But I would say certainly a lot of industries have shrunk and seen a lot of layoffs, lots of redundancies, retail, hospitality, travel, energy as well. So on the whole, it is admittedly a lot more difficult. Again, it would very much depend on your particular role, on your particular skill set, and your industry and what it is that you want to do. It is possible that some people are taking lower paid jobs as opposed to being unemployed. In my personal experience, at least the clients I work with, they didn't take worse off positions. On the contrary, they actually transitioned into roles that were more aligned to what they wanted, and more often than not, better paid. However, this didn't happen overnight. That's the important point. It happened through work and preparation over a number of months.
No, I appreciate that. So, we're coming to the end of our chat today. Where, if people want to reach out to you, Jelena, where can they go? What should they do?
Sure. I think the easiest thing would be to go to my website. My new website is actually live, but I haven't launched it yet publicly, so why not do that right now? And that is whatwork.co.uk. And you will be able to see my work there and what I offer in terms of coaching. Also, there's a blog with lots of interesting content, and there's a contact form which you can use to contact me, or you can just simply email to info@whatwork.co.uk.
That's great. Thank you so much for that. And for those who are on the call or you're watching the replay, if you have questions afterwards, be sure to comment in the comment below, tag Jelena and myself, and we can answer some questions for you. But we want you to share your thoughts. If you like, you can tag people to join the conversation. You can share it on your own page and get people's insights. But ultimately, feel free to engage even after this broadcast is on the replay. We encourage you. As for the Power Connection chat, first off, I want to thank Jelena for being here. I do appreciate your time and your insights, particularly in areas that, adding. I love how we're aligned in many ways, but you also add value in things that I actually don't know about. So I do appreciate that. And as a general rule, the Power Connection broadcast is normally on Mondays and Wednesdays at 8:45 a.m. I'm actually transitioning, so I'm going to let people know that the fall has arrived. My kids are in school, and it's just a different kind of schedule that I have. So because of that, I'm going to be transitioning the show probably to a weekly format. I haven't decided whether it's going to be weekly Mondays or weekly Wednesdays. It's going to be one of those 2 days. Watch for a poll. I'm going to do a poll on my page and ask people, when do you want it? Do you want Monday, Wednesday morning, or Monday, Wednesday at lunchtime? And we'll see what people say. In the meantime, thanks so much for joining us. Thank you, Jelena. Please reach out. Oh, no problem. No problem. Reach out to her.
And I look forward to hearing from anyone who's had any questions or comments. Thank you again.
Okay, perfect. Thanks so much, guys. All the best. Have a great week.